Now that all the roughing inside the walls is done, things are going to start rolling. So today, they're insulating. They started this morning. They're almost done the house. Let's go inside. I want to point out a few things. Hi, I'm Ramsin Khachi. I'm the founder and principal of Khachi Design Build and Stone Lab Surfaces. I've been in the design and construction industry for over 25 years. I've decided to do an entire series around my own personal real estate investment. I'll be taking a builder's custom-like home and then taking it to an entirely new level.
Welcome to Bespoke in the Burbs.
So they've started all the insulation, the sound insulation, the thermal insulation. So as we look around, you can see they've got the bats going into the walls. Over here, you'll notice they've got the sound insulation. Now come on over here, I'm gonna show you a couple of things. One of the things I wanna do is make sure that there is no noise from the plumbing stacks. Because they're using ABS plumbing stacks, you can see it here. This one is actually gonna end up inside the closet here. That's the powder room. So we've insulated the powder room and important room to insulate. But the plumbing stack, because the closet is there, you're not gonna hear water running down it. Let's go upstairs, look at a few things up there. So up here, a couple of things to point out. We're gonna go into the master bedroom because you can see that clearly in some of the areas they've already started putting the vapor barrier on the ceilings. But one thing I want to point out is when you look around the outside, you see these styrofoam baffles. Now those are very, very important. They're gonna blow in the insulation into the attic. That is almost about 30 inches thick. So it starts to get up there. You wanna make sure that you don't cover all that ventilation that is created through the soffits. What mistake that people make is they blow in their attic insulation after the fact. They don't think about that. It goes into the corners and it actually covers all that ventilation, prevents the air from going into the soffits, out through the attic, and taking that built up moisture out of the attic and out of the roof vents. So you end up with condensation, and not only that, you get some heat loss through the inside, and that heat loss goes up and melts the snow that settles on the roof. You get some melting, you end up with ice dams, all kinds of problems. So those vents that are going around, it's really important to have those baffles in place and not to cover those ventilation spaces. Another thing I'm going to do is that I pointed out all the ductwork in here and the fact that we've gone through, taken the time and sealed all the ducts with foil tape. And I love the fact that they've done that. That's great. It takes care of all the big gaps and all the big leaks in the ductwork. But to prevent the problem of having too hot a space in the summertime up here and maybe too cold a space down in the basement in the wintertime, I want to make sure that the ductwork here is really efficient. So I'm going to the next step, which is hiring a company called AeroSeal. They take these ducts, these supply ducts that come into the rooms, they cover them all. Then they pressurize the system from the basement. When they pressurize it, they inject a sealant into the system, and anywhere the air is leaking out of the ducts, it seals those holes. So what happens is you get a super efficient system where there's no air leaks in the ductwork. All the air that's meant to come up here will come up here. And that's one step that's important to take. You'll end up with a really, really efficient system, and that's what I want here. So the last little thing is I've asked Mario if I can come in and do some blocking, because when the finishing stuff goes on, I don't want to struggle with finding solid backing for the screws, and I don't want to use drywall plugs, especially in areas like the shower. So when the hand shower goes on, I know this unit is 30 inches long from here, 30 inches up puts us here. I want to make sure there's blocking in behind these, and as well where the towel bars are going to go, I want to make sure that there's solid blocking in areas where I'm going to put all those accessories so that they're on there sturdy and tight and strong and never come loose. So in the basement, this is the home theater. Now you remember that double wall I was talking about? This is it here. So we've got two separate walls. The back wall is actually insulated with sound insulation. Then there's another layer of sound insulation in between. Then we're gonna deal with the sound insulation in here. I wanna make sure that none of this sound in here travels into the gym and vice versa, because we've got those Nakamatone invisible speakers going on the back of this wall, directing sound into that gym. In here, the next layer of soundproofing is Sonopan. We're gonna actually cover this room entirely with Sonopan. That's gonna be a cool thing to watch. It's gonna end up looking like a green room basically, but it's gonna be sealed all the way around from the floor to the ceiling, and even right around the speakers where the speakers go in. We're gonna make sure that Sonopan travels around them and isolates that sound all within this space. That'll be next. We're back on site, and while Fernbrook's guys are drywalling upstairs and working their way down, we're going to take this opportunity. I've got my crew coming in to install sound deadening panels in here, and for that we're using Sonopan. These are 100% recycled wood product, and it's compressed and engineered with these dimples to absorb and disperse the sound. It goes on as a skin on the inside of the wall. We're going to staple it into place, and very easy to cut. So we're going to cut it with a track saw, basically similar to as you would to plywood or anything else, but it's really lightweight and easy to work with. We're going to staple it into place. We've already started here, and you can see this is where the front, center, left, and right speakers go. We've lined the back of the cavity, so actually that enclosure is all soundproofed. I'm going to time lapse it to make it happen really quickly so you can see it all come together, so let's get going. Okay, we're moving along well, so the panels on the ceiling are going well. They're getting a little slowed down a little bit when we get to the speakers because those take a little time to wrap inside between the joists. Now, we're staggering the joints the same way you would with drywall or plywood. It just makes it a little sturdier. We're staggering them, stapling them into the framing. Then we're actually going to do chalk lines of where the framing is. That's really important because when the drywall guys come in here and want to drywall, they're going to have no clue where the framing is. So putting those chalk lines makes their job a lot easier, and because they're using long screws, I don't want them to miss and hit the wires by accident or anything like that. So planning is key, and we're trying to do that as we go along. So while these guys are carrying on with the Sonopan, let me show you a couple of things in here. These boxes we put in, actually these plates, these are rough-in plates for the Nakamatone invisible speakers. This way the drywall comes around, we tape this onto the drywall, the speakers fit inside, then we tape onto the speakers and plaster onto them, and they get plastered into the drywall and they become invisible. Let's go upstairs, I'll show you what it looks like with the drywall on. So on the main floor, the drywall is pretty much done. You can see how it all comes together and the rooms start to form. So all the bulkheads are done. That area there, that's where the crown molding is going to be on the inside. The cabinetry is going to go to the bulkhead. I can just see it coming together. These rough-in plates are in on this level. So these Nakamatone rough-in plates are ready to be plastered in. Once they're done, the speakers go in. They'll drive the sound into the space. I've got 4 of them on this back wall, and then I'm going to have a subwoofer in here to round out the sound. It's going to sound spectacular. Up in one of the front bedrooms, a couple of things I want to point out. These ceilings have some of these vaulted areas where you got those 135-degree drywall corners. They never turn out nice when you use paper tape, so I hope they use structural tape there. I'm going to talk to Fernbrook, see if I can have them do an extra for me to use structural tape in those areas so those lines are crisp and straight. Another thing I want to point out is up here over the doorways. All the doorways, you'll notice that the joints of the drywall are staggered just a little bit in. Makes the corners a little stronger, prevents that little bit of cracking in the corners. And lastly, I want to point out these integrated return air grills. The trims are in place, they've put them in. Once they plaster in around those integrated grills pop in and they become flush with the drywall and they look spectacular. Our Sonopan is done. It looks fantastic. One minor detail I'm going to tend to, some of the gaps are a little bit too big, so we're going to fill them with acoustical. That way we get 100% seal. We don't get any noise seeping out of this space. You'll notice that we covered all the speaker enclosures. They're actually bigger than the speakers. 5/8 drywall will go over this opening. The wires are tucked in nicely and out of the way. You want these out of the way because when you're cutting afterwards, you don't want to damage the wires. Then we'll cut for those Nakamatone speakers, place them in, plaster over them, and they'll be ready to go. Lastly, we've got 2 speakers up here, and that is for Atmos surround sound. That's going to really give us a robust, beautiful surround sound system. Next is drywall and then taping, and I will see you after that.